I would be pregnant and I would have chemotherapy my whole pregnancy, basically.
Communities don't talk about this,
Yeah.
but your kids need you.
Yeah.
And when she said that, I was just a mess.
I don't want the wrong narrative of cancer to come across. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Black Women Rising, the podcast. I am delighted today to be joined by two special guests. We have Nelly and Deandra joining us, who are both women who were diagnosed with breast cancer in their 20s. Deandra was diagnosed 6 weeks into her second pregnancy, and Nelly was diagnosed 3 months after the birth of her third child. Girls, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
It is an absolute pleasure to welcome you to the podcast. I mean, Deandra, can you talk a little bit about your cancer journey? I will tell you though, this is talking about who you were before cancer as well. So we're going to get into that. But I want us to start with your stories, because I think there's elements of both of your stories that still pulls up my heartstrings. You know, it's a lot. So Deandra, if we start off with you.
Okay, so it's a long story, but I'm going to try and condense it as much as possible. But at 6 weeks pregnant, in fact, I was 4 weeks pregnant, just found out I was pregnant. And a couple of days later, something just told me to just do a self-examination. I kind of had been doing them kind of randomly, but something told me to do it that day, and I did it and just found a tiny, tiny lump. It was so small, kind of like the tip of a pen almost. And I asked my husband, you know, can you feel that? He was uncertain. Sometimes he could feel it, sometimes he couldn't. And I thought, you know what, let me just go and get it checked out. Just because I had just had a baby, she had just turned 1, just finished breastfeeding, and I really enjoyed breastfeeding. So I wanted to make sure that nothing would hinder that experience with baby number 2. So contacted my GP. Once they understood that it was a lump, they did see me the same day, so they were quite good. It was the end of the day. GP seemed really tired and just a bit over it, to be honest. And his response was that it's probably just hormonal. It'll probably just go, you know, with the cycle of your menstrual cycle. But I insisted that I wanted to have it checked properly. So I said to him, you know, I'm not comfortable just walking away. I do want to make sure that it's checked properly. So he did a referral for me, a 2-week referral. We went for the appointment, same thing, they checked it. I think the one-stop breast clinic, they kind of do the physical examination, then do the scans. So did the physical examination, they said, doesn't seem like anything. Scans, they said, it doesn't seem like anything. It looks like a fibroadenoma. But we have to biopsy it anyway. It's part of the hospital's policy. So that's what they did. They took a biopsy. I then travelled for a couple of weeks, came back, went to my appointment with my husband. To be honest, now thinking back, I don't know what I was expecting. I think I was going in there completely unaware of the situation. I walked in and there was a nurse on the right, and she looked like she'd been crying. So I think that for me was the first, the first sign that something was not right. Sat down, and the lady just said to me, you know, we got the biopsy back and unfortunately you've got breast cancer. And I literally shrieked. I'm not really a massive emotions person. I'm not too high, not too low, but that day I shrieked. Like, I was so loud. I kind of had an out-of-body experience where I was like watching myself, like, who is screaming like that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was me. My husband was just silent. He was the complete opposite, and just, I'm guessing he was just overwhelmed by the whole thing. So, but he was keeping me calm as much as he could. Obviously, the first thing I said is, well, I'm pregnant, so how can I have cancer? And 2, how am I going to treat the cancer, because I'm expecting? The doctor was, you know, the consultant was like, you know, you can either keep the baby and we'll do surgery, chemo, this and that, or you can terminate the baby and we'll do X, Y, and Z. The treatment plans were basically the same, but I'd have to have a break at some point to have the baby if I kept the baby. So for me, all I heard was keeping the baby, longer treatment, and obviously being diagnosed with cancer. I didn't know what stage, what was going on. I just thought the fastest situation is the best situation. So there and then I said to them, I'm terminating the pregnancy. There's no way that I'm going to do pregnancy and cancer. Those two things they just don't go together. I've never heard of anyone doing it, so I'm not going to be the first, basically. So we left, and after we left, maybe like a day or two later, I came across a cancer and pregnancy registry, and it was on there that I saw other women's experiences with cancer and pregnancy. There's a lady in the States who records cancer and pregnancy journeys, and she's been doing it for about 30 years. I really struggled to find anything that looked like what I was going through. There was literally nothing. I think I saw one lady on Instagram, but she didn't really look like me, and her diagnosis was a lot later in pregnancy. So they just brought the baby out earlier and then started treatment. But I couldn't see anything that looked like what I was going through, which was that I would be pregnant and I would have chemotherapy my whole pregnancy, basically. So yeah, saw that registry, and that changed my whole trajectory. So came back to the doctors and I said, well, I found this registry, and apparently people do have chemo in pregnancy, they do have surgery in pregnancy, so I think I'm gonna give it a try. And yeah, at that point I changed my mind and decided, I think I was 7 weeks pregnant at the time, that I would go ahead. So they booked me in for my first surgery. The thing with being pregnant is every step of the way they're telling you risk of miscarriage, constantly. Obviously they have to tell you, but it's not what you want to hear when you're already going through so much. So signed the paperwork to say that I'm happy to have the surgery and I understand the risk of miscarriage in my first trimester. Had the surgery, that was successful, baby came out okay, and then started chemotherapy in September of last year. So I did that for about 6 months. So throughout my second and third trimester, I had chemotherapy. Pretty much the same as everyone else. So EC and paclitaxel, I think is the standard one for the type of breast cancer that I had. I had a fantastic team at St Thomas's. So I had my antenatal team at Medway, fantastic team at St Thomas's, who kind of doubled up on the support and advocated for me to have the same things that I would have whether I was pregnant or not. So that was a big thing as well, just making sure that if there was a scan that I needed, that they wouldn't neglect me of that just because I was pregnant. So yeah, had chemo, and then at 35 weeks pregnant, they stopped the chemotherapy, allowed me to give birth at 40 weeks. I breastfed for 3 weeks, which was a really big deal for me because I thought I wouldn't be able to.
That's beautiful.
So I breastfed. I had the Human Milk Bank donated additional human breast milk for the remaining kind of couple of months for her to keep having that.
So nice.
It's been a journey. And then once I'd recovered from childbirth, I went back onto chemo, finished that in April, and then had a mastectomy in May, and then reconstruction July, and then I had my last surgery 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now. So yeah.
So you just finished your reconstruction.
Yeah.
It's
been 2.5 weeks.
2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
That is a really, really inspiring, but really hard story. How did you do it?
Honestly, I genuinely think that it's being pregnant that got me through my cancer journey. For me, it was the balance, right, of having these kind of negative, I don't know if that's the right word, but like, appointments that weren't as exciting or positive at the beginning of the week, and then later on in the week being able to see my baby. Obviously, because I had cancer at the time, I had a lot more scans than you typically would, so there was a plus side where I could see my baby, and that really got me through. In terms of chemotherapy, for some reason, I don't think there's any scientific back into it, but anecdotally, my oncologist shared with me that he had experienced that his pregnant patients didn't have symptoms as much of chemotherapy when they were pregnant.
So the physical stuff.
Yes, versus after they gave birth. And for me, that was very true. So I had, EC, which is also known as Red Devil, and
Yeah.
you know, prior to starting it, I'd done all this research, and people were kind of scaring me a little bit. But then to do it and not have anything, like no nausea, no sickness, no hair loss. I didn't have any symptoms whilst I was pregnant. After I gave birth and I had a few more chemo sessions, I did experience some of those symptoms afterwards. But yeah, generally, I think the pregnancy is actually what got me through and comforted me in such a challenging time. And I also had an amazing support system. My husband,
which makes a difference.
Baby, mum, like everyone was, siblings, everyone really, really came together and supported me.
Rallied around you.
That was important.
It's incredible. I mean, I've got a million questions to ask, but we're going to go to Nelly. I mean, you were diagnosed, what, last month?
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Last
month, yeah. It feels like so much has happened.
Yeah, of course it has. Yeah. And not only that, you're here. You know, we were talking, me and Deandra, we were talking and saying, like, literally, we went into hiding when we had our diagnosis and sort of just got on with it and everything else like that. You're here sitting on a podcast a month later. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey? But also, thank you for being here, because I do think it's so important to get the perspective of someone who's just been diagnosed as well.
Yeah. You know, like for me, it was just so important to not be shamed by disease. I just don't like feeling silenced. I want to live my life as I do and as I would. But at the same time, I just didn't want things to be a shock for those around me.
Okay, cool.
I wanted them to take it in like doses, like so slowly. I would tell friends and family, and then I told like my community online, because I was aware that I was told, as soon as I got my results, I was told that I would definitely be having chemo. So then the first thing that I thought of is, okay, people are going to physically see it, whether it's weight loss, maybe weight gain, loss of hair. So I was like, let me put it out there so that no one can like use it against me, you know, kind of thing. So that was why I said, I don't care how soon it is, I'm going to do it. And also because I've never seen someone do it that way before, but I needed that in that time.
Of course.
Because when I was diagnosed, I didn't know who to turn to.
Of course.
And I felt like everyone, and I love my family, I love my friends, but I just didn't feel like they would get me.
Yeah.
And I just needed to talk to people that would understand.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't even imagine how many people feel like this. And I was like, I've got my 3-month-old, my 1-year-old, my 3-year-old. And I'm just thinking to myself, this is overwhelming. Like, I need to talk to someone that's going to get it. So, yeah, that's why I thought, let me see what's out there. And I didn't find much. But then, obviously, I found, like, your amazing charity and stuff, which led me to amazing women like Deandra, because when I posted my video, it opened up so much conversation.
Of course.
And I'm so thankful for it. But as for when I found how everything started, I kind of hate telling the story, you know, because it's it's embarrassing. Because the reality is, I blame myself a little bit because I should have done something about it and I didn't. But I found the lump a while back, actually. And I just ignored it. But the funny thing with my lump is that I couldn't feel it upright. So I discovered the lump lying down.
Yeah, a lot of people do. Yeah.
But you don't see, because when they told, doing checks, you need to be like looking in the mirror, hand up, and I couldn't feel it because I have bigger busts, so I have a lot of tissue, so it would be hidden. So I'll be thinking, oh, maybe it's mind over matter. Like, I'm not really feeling a lump. Yeah. It's just me being an overthinker. Until like I was lying down and I was like, this thing feels so weird. So I got, again, like Deandra, I got my husband to feel it. Yeah. And he was like, yeah, no, there's definitely something there. Like, it felt like a rubber.
Yeah.
I left it. I was like, I haven't got cancer. Nah, it's gonna go. Then I got pregnant, and again, just kind of ignored it throughout my pregnancy, by the way. But so much was happening, slipped my mind. I had like a COVID baby, we were moving homes. It was a lot.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until nearer to the end of my second pregnancy, I found another lump in my armpit. And immediately I was like, okay, you have breast cancer, because now that is not normal. Like if you have one lump and then you have another lump, all in the same area where they would be discovered, something's up. And again, I didn't do anything about it because subconsciously I had like really lied to myself and said it's pregnancy related. And also when I asked midwives, I was like, oh, like I've got a lump, and they were like, oh, are you breastfeeding? And I was like, no, I'm trying to stop. And they were like, oh, so then it's milk duct, dried up on the sides. You need to massage it. And I was like, okay, I guess. I was like, I guess. Then I massaged it, but obviously the 2 tumours stayed there, obviously. And then it was my last born, my daughter's 8-week checkup to be discharged, and mine as well. And like I remember saying, okay, I'm going on contraception first of all, because I can't be having these kids like so close. I need a break.
No, of course.
So I remember when they discharged my daughter, everything was fine with her. I went next door to go on contraception, and I wasn't even going to say it that day, but something, and I'm Christian, by the way, so I was like, okay, I felt like the Holy Spirit literally spoke through me, and my mouth just opened, and I was like, oh, there's a lump in my right breast.
Yeah.
Wow. And she was like, I can't give you this. This is just hormones.
Yeah.
Like, I can't give you this. You need to go back next door.
Yeah.
To your doctor. Yeah. You need to get examined.
Yeah.
I went to get examined, and she couldn't feel it because I was sitting up when she was examining me. I was like, oh no, I have to lie down. So then they brought in a chaperone, and then they checked it, and she was like, that's really big. And I was like, oh yeah, and another one under my armpit. God. So when I'm lying down, you can kind of squeeze the tumor, like it was around this size kind of thing. So I was lying down to the side, and she was like, do you see, like that's really big, like why didn't you come in sooner? Yeah. And I was like, I was just scared, you know. I was like, I just didn't want it to be that.
Of course.
And then she was brown, and she said to me, look, our communities don't talk about this, but your kids need you. Yeah. And when she said that, I was just a mess. Completely, like all my composure went out the window. Yeah. And then she referred me again, 2-week referral. Yeah. And then I remember going to get the biopsy, which was so traumatic.
It's so traumatic. People don't talk about
No
that.
one speaks about the biopsy.
Biopsies.
Girl, I went in there thinking, oh yeah, they're just going to do another examination. No. I walked in there. Also, another thing that like, I will never ever forget this. I walked in there and there was a waiting room. But when you're waiting in the waiting room, they tell you to change into, you know the robe that's open at the back? You need to just sit in it until you're called. Yeah. So I got changed. I sat down, like trying to avoid eye contact. Yeah. No one knows me. Yeah. But I'm just like, okay, I don't want anyone to look at me and think, okay, she has breast cancer. Avoiding. Yeah. Now just to look up, and I looked around, and so many of like the women dressed up were young girls with their mums. Yeah. As in like they looked like 17-year-olds. Like. Yeah. I was thinking, what? So it's not your mum that's in the... Yeah. So we're not here, but you're here for you. And they looked younger than me. I was thinking, that's insane. Anyway, so they called me in for the biopsy. And they were like, oh yeah, we're just going to give you local, obviously anesthesia. Anesthetic, local anesthetic. There's going to be some blood. I was like, blood? Like I just... they did not talk me through the process. I remember looking over at her again. This was another brown lady. I was like, oh, does it look like? She was like, it's suspicious. I was like, have you seen? She was like, yeah, and the ones that I've seen, it tends to be breast cancer. But she was like, we don't know.
Yeah, because sometimes it's not.
Yeah. She's like, we don't know. So then, anyway, done the mammogram, came back, never forget the day, 10th of October. I came back with my kids this time because I already knew I had breast cancer, by the way. I felt like the signs were there. Like, I kept seeing things. And obviously, October's breast cancer awareness month.
I know.
But I felt like even leading up to that, prior to that, God was kind of preparing me so that I can take it in the best way possible for my kids. So I brought them along with me, and I made the decision to do that because what we go through, we're all going to go through together. And I wanted to embed that in them in young, even though they're not going to remember, but it was for me, like, we're a unit. And we're going to do everything together. So I remember going in, and there were 2 Macmillan nurses.
Yeah.
I looked over at my husband. I looked at my husband. I don't think he heard because he was like trying to settle the kids. But I was like, you know what it is.
Yeah.
Saw the nurses. I was like, okay, cool. You're not crying, just focus. Saw my consultant. He was like, yep, it's come back. It's got cancerous cells. We found that it actually spread your lymph nodes, hence the second tumour under my armpit. And yeah, we need to get you scheduled for a lumpectomy as soon as possible. And that's exactly what happened. And literally, guys, in the past month, I've done, like, so much has happened. Literally from being referred, diagnosed, lumpectomy, recovery, and tomorrow, my first appointment with my oncologist to find out about my treatment. But I just feel like that's so much in a month.
So much. It goes so quick.
But it was so quick, and I'm also grateful for that because we know that the NHS is strained.
Yeah, exactly.
So for the fact that it happened so quickly, I was really, really, really happy with that.
Yeah.
And yeah, but yeah, here I am.
How do you feel?
I feel good, but it's weird. I feel like I shouldn't be feeling good.
Why?
Because I feel like I should not, when I speak to people, right? And that's why I'm going to say something and my friend's going to be like, oh, that's why she hasn't called me back. Or,
Yeah, good.
But I've been avoiding a lot of people.
Yeah.
Reason being, I feel like I'm in a happy place. But cancer itself is not a happy thing.
No.
And I feel like people think, how can the two coexist? You know? And I feel like when I'm speaking to people, I'm like, but guys, like, I'm fine. They're like, yeah, but Nelly, you know, you have kids. And I'm like, listen, if anyone knows that they have kids, it's me. I know I have kids, but, you know, I'm doing fine. And I just feel like I get the, oh, but sis.
That's
like,
judgment,
or
though.
like, how, oh, but how you know, and I avoid it. But then at the same time, I feel like people are entitled to their feelings, and I have to, like, give people grace to.
But you don't have to hear it because you're trying to keep yourself in your positive space.
Yeah.
And you've got to do what you can to protect your space at all times.
Exactly, which is why some people have just been like, but then in due time, I will get back to them and I will explain these things. But right now, Leanne, I've got to be honest with you, I am very happy. Good. I'm happy because there's an answer.
Yeah.
If things were up in the air and I didn't know what was going to happen,
absolutely,
I would be a little bit more, you know.
Yeah.
But my kids are fine.
Yeah.
My husband's fine.
Absolutely.
I'm going to be amazing.
Yeah.
My family's here.
Yeah.
So I don't feel the need to be sad. No, I just don't feel the need to be sad.
I love it. No, I agree. I think for me, mine was the opposite, right? Because I didn't want people to do the whole that's why I was just like, just parked it. If you see me, you see me in a party, we'll turn up together. Like, do you know what I mean? Because I feel like that is a natural thing, right? When people find out, they naturally go into, oh my God, babe, like, are you okay,
because
babe?
it's death, right?
Yeah.
Because that's
people
what they
think of death. Like, literally, cancer is
death.
Yeah, it's death.
It is.
So I think mine was the opposite. I was like, let me just not tell you so that you don't feel that you need to, you could just be normal around me. That's what we need, right?
Just people to be normal.
Normal, yeah, exactly. I mean, look, both of you had busy lives before these diagnoses. I mean, you are a curriculum lead, you know, you've travelled, you've worked abroad, you've had a rich life experience of teaching and doing all of that. Like, what does life look like for you now and the future?
It's a really good question. I feel like I'm very much in the rediscovery phase.
Lots of people are,
just like closing, I don't know if it's closing the chapter, but you know, kind of this no longer being like the main focus.
Absolutely.
I'm now getting ready to kind of return to work and just think about what I want to spend my time doing. I think obviously having a diagnosis like this just makes you think like, what am I spending my time doing? Do I enjoy it? Do I want to keep doing it? So I think I'm currently at that stage where I'm like asking a lot of questions. For me, Dubai is my happy place. That's where I work. That's where my husband.
Don't leave us.
And we want to.
Don't leave us.
We want to go back. We want to go back. I'll be rooting from Dubai. But we want to go back. And I feel like prior to this, maybe it would have been a bit slower to move. Whereas now it's like,
let's go. Let's make it happen.
Let's do this. Like whatever we need to do to make it happen, let's make it happen. And like, as you said, traveling, doing big things. I'm turning 30 and man, we're going all out. So
do you know what I really like is I like the contrast. I was a bit worried about bringing you both on because I'm always really conscious about people who have been newly diagnosed because there's this kind of thing that when you're newly diagnosed, a lot of people want to know what is the journey going to be like, right? And I'm always really conscious that everyone's on different journeys. And I was like, that was the only thing that was stopping me from bringing you both together. But I think your example and all the things you've spoken about just gives so much people hope. And for someone like Nelly who's coming on board and as someone who's just been newly diagnosed, that's what you want to see. Exactly. You want to see examples. When I was diagnosed, 7 years ago, there was nothing. There was no representation. There was no young black girls that looked like me. There was no one online apart from one girl, and she was going for a real shitty time, you know what I mean? But there was no one else. And so for me, everything is always about like representation and being able to look and say, actually, I feel fine going through this, or I'm okay because I can see examples of people who have come before me and they're doing so good and so well. And in fact, life is better. Because that's what I always tell everybody, like, one thing that cancer did for me was make my life a lot better. And not for all the wrong reasons.
Course,
it's inside. It's the mental aspect. I just think representation matters. You know, I think it's really, really important because I just think you coming on gives so much hope to someone like Nelly who is in the beginning stages, and just seeing that you're okay, you coped okay, you're living your life, you're making plans for the future, in probably one of the worst conditions. You went through cancer that I've ever heard, and have come out, and you're still kind, and you're still got so much love, and still feeling positive, because that's another thing about the journey, right? Sometimes people come out of it and they don't feel great, and that's something that we deal with a lot. I mean, Nelly, look, you're a well-known influencer and content creator. Well, that's what you would go by and say. You're a content creator, and your content's fire, by the way.
Thank you.
What responsibility did you feel that you had to share it with your followers? Because, you know, I've watched some of your stuff, and you're so open and so honest all the time. It makes sense why I know why it was important for you to share. And I guess my initial reaction to that was, no, protect yourself, take some time for you, get to know what you know. But obviously everyone's different. Why was it so important for you to share?
When I was diagnosed, I remember it was almost like a sense of relief, because I'm like, okay, at least I know I have breast cancer. It's time to get to work planning. So for me, work means my family. I need to like prepare my kids. What's that going to look like at home? Am I still going to be able to parent the way I want to? My parenting style, all these kind of things. So in that, I thought, okay, let me go online and see if there's a community. I believe that community is everything, by the way. Without a community, it's just so hard. Everything is just harder without a village, right?
Yeah.
So I went online and there was basically nothing, right? I typed in, I think my hashtag was breast cancer, super generic. I don't know what I was expecting. And then it was just like a lot of white people, white women, white men, some brown people, but there was like, I kid you not, like maybe a handful of black women. And the black women that I saw, they weren't young black women. So then I went on Macmillan because obviously they're the nurses that was in the hospital with me. So I went on their website, on their Instagram, and then I saw other charities and then other charities, and then eventually it led me to Black Women Rising. And I was like, this is it.
Yes.
I was like, this is it.
This is the place.
I was like, I found my people. And then I was like, yeah, but even so, like, there should still be more though. Even though it was enough for me.
Yeah, of course.
I just thought, but the rabbit hole I had to go down to find my people was exhausting. So I was like, okay, well, I have my community. And honestly, I mentally prepared myself that I had breast cancer a while back. So whilst the diagnosis put it into perspective,
you knew for a while.
I was due, So I was like, I'm ready to talk about it. Now to people, it's like, why is she doing that? What's she trying to gain out of it? But it's like, guys, I've been feeling this lump for a while now, so I knew what time it was. But so I felt I felt responsible to some extent because I was like, you know, I've just had my child. I was pregnant with cancer and didn't know. Had the best pregnancy, by the way. I enjoy all my pregnancies. But I was like, nevertheless, I still had cancer whilst pregnant. I've never seen that before, you know? I've never seen the two coexist, exactly like what Deandra said. Like it's impossible. I want to say it's impossible. We know it's not. But it felt like life can't be that cruel. Surely not, right? And then that's when I said, yeah, like, I'm ready to have conversation about this. And I want to let everyone know, mothers especially, because I'm a mum, that you're not exempt, unfortunately. Don't stop doing the checks because you're pregnant. Because even though like you are sacred and you're going through such a beautiful moment, like life can be so unfair. And it's like, I just wanted to put that out there. I remember that was my thing. My thing was just to put it out there.
Absolutely.
I didn't want to like, I didn't want to make it too deep. I wanted to create content in a way that people can digest as well, but then understand that it's deep. And yeah, that's what I did.
What was the reaction like?
The reaction was a lot. Because you see me, I don't like being told what to do. I like to do things when I feel ready. And I felt the green light in my spirit and I did it. People don't understand it, including family, because I had family hit me up like,
I know. I can imagine.
Like, you didn't think to say, like, but then I was thinking, nah, I didn't think to say, because telling you may have like derailed me from what I was trying to do in the first place, and you have to respect that. And that's the conversation that I've been having. So yeah, it was overwhelming, but the response was huge, and it was positive, and it was enlightening, and it brought so many amazing people in my life, like you two. It was just so amazing, and then I felt like I wasn't alone. And I felt like I could turn around, And funnily enough, like it even sparked convo with people that I knew that had breast cancer, but they didn't say anything.
Exactly. I remember.
And I was thinking to myself, you've got breast cancer.
I know.
You know?
Literally. I remember that happened to me as well. Yeah.
And I was
Mad.
like, but
Yeah.
sis, I can't. You're not,
You're not,
you look
yeah.
normal, like everything's fine. You've had a double mastectomy, no one knows.
No.
Like, and you're getting on with like, and then I look at these women and I think, my outlet is me content creating.
Yeah.
How did you deal with that?
Yeah.
You know, like, what was your outlet? Because, you know?
I think everybody has their different ways, don't they, of sort of, like for me, it was really important for me to go into hiding when I had cancer.
Yeah.
I just, the type of person I am as well, I'm actually, I couldn't do what you do. I really give it up to you, you know, and, you know, with all the content creating stuff, I rate you girls highly that do it, anybody that does it, because it's a lot of work. But also, for me, there is an element of overshare. And that's not comfortable to me, but it is comfortable to other people. And I think everyone has to find their way and not judge anybody for their way of doing it.
Exactly.
Because particularly in the cancer space, when I first started talking about cancer, no one was talking about cancer. There was a few girls that were talking about it, and they were white girls. Now there's a lot of women of colour now speaking up about cancer. There is so many stories, so many people putting stuff out there now. And I'm always very worried because I don't want the wrong narrative of cancer to come across, because regardless of what we're talking about, cancer's shit.
Yeah.
And I think we have to be honest about that. Cancer is not a good thing. We're great because we're all three positive ladies who I think positivity is run through our bloodline in terms of who we are as people and in our lives. But actually, for so many people, cancer is devastating.
Absolutely.
And everyone has their own reactions to it. So I'm always very worried about what I see from people. And that's why I invited you both on the podcast today, because I feel the way both of you have gone about it is really beautiful. It's really encouraging. The stuff that you've put out about it has been absolutely fantastic. You have been really honest and transparent, but also full of so much hope and love and support and referring people to lots of things and supportive. That is exactly how you do it. And I think that's because it's very genuine. Yourself, speaking at that last conference I interviewed you at, and I walked away, I was like, I did not know, because obviously I only had a certain notes about you and were completely blown away by your story, but also meeting your miracle baby as well in the flesh, and your family, and seeing the support that you had was beautiful to see. And I think that's why both of you, I think, as much as you might not want it, but you'll be, this podcast and what we're doing today is going to inspire so many people. Because like you said you was in a hospital and you saw so many young girls in gowns. So many young girls are being diagnosed with breast cancer at the moment in their 20s and 30s. And as we know, black women are presenting a lot earlier than the screening age with cancer, and it's just fact. Why do you think in all of this and in these diagnoses, especially when you're young, representation and storytelling matters? Why do you think that?
I think it can literally change the trajectory of your treatment. Like for me, as I said, I was ready to terminate, you know, and like I think it's taken me a while to like even be able to share that with people, but in that moment I was ready to terminate, and it was only because for me the representation wasn't necessarily a black woman, but it was a woman who was also pregnant, who had a young toddler.
That's what you were needing,
and that's what I needed in that moment. Had I have seen a black woman who was pregnant, I think that would have even, you know, one step further. And that's why representation, it is so important. And I feel like it's great that we can share our stories. And I was telling you earlier that, you know, I've been battling with this dilemma of, to what extent do I share and raise awareness and make sure that someone else who comes, you know, into this kind of experience can see me and be hopeful and, you know, maybe change their mind about terminating, versus just wanting to kind of put it in a box and put it away. Put it in the garage. I'm done with this experience. Because as you said, it's not a nice experience. It isn't. As much as we're positive and etc. There are moments where you sit there. Nelly, I don't know about, you know, it's so early on, but there are moments where, like, even after treatment, I've just sat there like, what the actual F have I just been through? Like,
do you know what?
What is
I
this?
was literally, like, again, rabbit hole on Instagram or whatever, and then I came across this account, and it was a woman that's been like cancer free, I think, for like 8 years now.
Yeah.
And she was like, people don't talk about life after cancer. It's like once you ring the bell, and now that you're cancer free, people like forget about you. They go back to normal. They stop checking in. Meanwhile, you're having to process feelings that you completely put on hold just to get through the cancer.
That is the truth. Yeah.
And then I thought to myself, that's like the 4th trimester, like after you've given birth. People don't talk about that part.
No.
So like people leave the mom, like they check in on the mom first week, 2 or whatever. After that, you're pretty much on your own. So then, and I was like, how crazy that it relates. It's like, right? It relates to pregnancy, and like that's where we kind of were and are for me. Do you get what I'm saying?
It's like a double whammy, isn't it? Like postpartum,
post-cancer,
like
it just feels
That's the double whammy of that.
Yeah.
What would you say to any other girls in their 20s being diagnosed with cancer like you, in and around pregnancy, just after, but actually just in their 20s?
In the 20s. I would say, first of all, take it easy. It's a lot, and I feel like you have permission to deal with it however you want to deal with it. I feel like it's important to not let people project. Remember, like we were talking about this whole like projection thing. It's so important to not let people like determine your experience of cancer. Like we said, it's a very shitty thing. It's literally fuck cancer. Like no one likes cancer. But at the end of the day, if you've got it, you kind of have to find the silver lining in everything. And you will get through it with that kind of like mentality. So I feel like that's what it is. Like, say no to projection and find the silver lining in whatever you can.
Yeah, I love that.
No,
I love
I
that so
agree.
much.
I think with the projection thing, like just being explicit about like other people, you know, see cancer in a certain way, especially people that haven't been through it.
Yeah,
God,
They
it's
see
always
it in a
those
certain-
ones.
they
Like
see
people
it
that
in a
haven't been
certain
through
way.
it.
And then they now expect,
Yeah.
you know, why are you not sad? Why are you not crying? Why are you out here? Why are you in the motive? Like, what are you doing here?
So I should stop dancing, I should
exactly.
stop singing, I should just be in bed.
Well, you'll start getting all the recipes from people of all the stuff you've got to take and the food and the diet and the supplements.
I've started, guys.
Honestly.
It started
I had to tell my
for
mum.
me.
Mine was my mum because I didn't share it with many people.
Yeah.
So obviously my mum, bless her, she's just like figuring out Instagram. So she's like, oh, you know, this ginger. This. I'm like, Mum, I'm like, Mum, I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
But I've just literally the information that I'm currently processing is enough for
exactly.
10 people. Like,
Yes, my mum
I don't need
literally,
anymore.
it just came back from the Caribbean. She brought
she
dried
brought
soursop
oh my
leaves.
God,
Oh yes, I got that too. I've got
Soursop leaves. She brought
my God, that is the
tea.
thing. Yeah.
She brought me so much.
Apparently the soursop is good though. So
Yeah, I know.
I've been
I'm not
drinking
gonna
it.
lie,
I've
all
been
of that stuff
drinking
is good. But you can do it right at the same time. You know, and I think that's another thing why I'm so glad to have you girls on here, because you're advocating for taking the treatment as well.
Yeah.
And I will never forget when I was going for my oncology, and I remember I had cancer at 30, and the woman said I was the youngest person on the rota.
Wow.
And there was also another comment, and it was like, you've got better luck at winning the lotteries than having cancer at your age. That's what I was told.
Wow.
But anyway, that's that. But she did tell me when I was nearing my treatment, and she said, we get so many girls your age coming in here. And that was my first sort of thing of, rah, people get it this young. Because up until that point, I thought, shit, it was only me that had it this young. And she turned around and she said, we get so many young black girls coming in and refusing the treatment. And she said, and they're always talking about going on a prayer diet and, you know, fasting and and I said, and obviously since running Black Women Rising, I do know that it's a huge problem. And so many doctors and nurses talk to me about it all the time, that black women are still coming in and refusing the treatment and the drugs. And I always tell everyone, you've got a choice. It's completely up to you. But I'm an advocate of, yes, I agree with all the herbal things and stuff like that you can do, but at the same time as the recommended treatment that's been put in front of you. And I think that that is very, very important. You can pray, you can fast, you can do all of that, but do it all at the same time.
I literally, like, that is something that I said I'm definitely going to speak about, because like, even with my mum, not to throw her under the bus, but I remember I was speaking to my mum, and I was like, yeah, so like when I start chemo, she'd be like, oh no, you won't need chemo.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, Mum, she was
yeah.
like, no, because you can go there and they'll tell you that you won't need it. I was like, Mum,
yeah.
like everyone that has cancer, based on what the nurse said to me, if you've got the cancer cells, to get rid of it, you need to do some sort of therapy.
Yeah.
She's like, you know, by God's grace, you won't. And hear me out, I'm a believer and I have faith.
Of course you do.
But then at the same time, I say like, if God wants it that way, he wants it that way.
The two
you know,
go hand in hand.
They go hand in hand.
The medical advancements
exactly.
are not by chance.
Exactly.
They are by the
it's true.
divine
true.
intervention of God.
Yes.
These medical professionals, some of the medical professionals that I've met,
exactly,
are literal angels.
Yes.
Like they have,
yes.
do you know what I mean? They've
the
got
skills,
a spirit within them that one keeps you positive. They're the ones that are encouraging you. You know, they speak and you feel. I mean, I've had some doctors that when they speak, I don't feel at peace.
Yeah, exactly.
But there are some that I've chosen that they speak and I feel at peace. I know that God is working through them.
Exactly.
The two are not mutually exclusive. They literally go hand in hand. Being able to go into surgery with a 6-week-old, you know, fetus and come out and the baby's fine, go into chemo, that is only by the grace of God.
Absolutely. No, people know what they're doing.
They know what chemotherapy is going round and round and round and round that baby, and the baby comes out perfectly fine. The two go hand in hand.
That is something. Yes.
And you know what's funny that you said about that? When I was in Ghana, because obviously you can imagine in, you know, the West African countries and even in, you know, Asia, all places, the Caribbean, you know, where these myths and taboos are so culturally embedded in these communities. I loved the saying that was everywhere I went in Ghana, which is faith-backed science, you know, and I feel like that's something that they use a lot in the churches and things like that. And that's how they managed to get the churches on board with recommending the treatment and things like that for the women, because it is the truth, you know. So it's brilliant to have you both on here advocating for that as well.
Absolutely.
Because I know that so many young girls, you know, unfortunately, will be going through the same thing, worrying about should I not, but also taking advice from people who don't know what the hell they're talking about. And unfortunately, you know, as it has happened, unfortunately, with some of the members of Black Women Rising, are unfortunately not here anymore because of refusing the treatment. So thank you so much. I could speak to you girls for hours.
I can go on for hours.
I know. But I would say though, I can see a beautiful budding friendship here.
100%.
No,
we're actually like living
like,
down the road.
We've already said we're brunching soon. Like it's happening.
And I'd like to say I did not know they knew each other when I invited them on together.
Yeah.
It was the vibe I picked up. So this is all by chance.
Divine.
It's mad.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and a decision I only made in the last week because this whole podcast has been really, we've had to plan it really quickly.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy. So thank you.
Thank you.
There are two things I want to do though.
Yeah.
So every guest, these are 2 packs of my favourite cards.
Okay.
So here's affirmations and here's a statement/advice.
Yeah.
They've all been shuffled and everything else like that.
Okay.
So you'll just pick from the top. What one do you want? You can have an affirmation or you can have a piece of advice/statement. Pick one.
I'll do advice.
You want to do advice?
Yeah, I'll do advice.
You can do the advice.
I
Okay,
think
cool.
I'm going to do advice as
Okay,
well.
just pick one from there.
Do we have to, is it a question that we answer?
No, I just want you to say it out loud and what it means to you.
Okay. I trust that my gut reaction is the truth underneath the surface of my fears.
Ooh,
That's deep.
I love that.
That is very deep.
That's deep. Yes.
Keep it, it's your cards.
I think I want affirmation.
Okay, cool.
I just want to see what that box is about
Okay,
now.
cool.
Yeah.
There you are.
Thank you. Oh, if I could get one. Perfect. I've got it. I like it.
Go on, what does it say?
The more I let go, the more I enjoy it. I focus to free my mind.
Woo!
That sounds like what you're saying.
Yeah.
And it's really lovely because you are letting go and
Yeah.
you're just going with the flow. Like I said, you're happy, you're in a good place. And I think that's because you have let go and you're just like, bring it on, bring tomorrow on.
That's exactly
You're
how
here
I
at a
feel.
podcast the day before you find out your treatment plan. Ain't that something? you know.
Now that you said that, my heart is beating it, because I forgot about that appointment tomorrow.
You know what? You're going in there with exactly what I said. I was saying it on another podcast, and I said, I remember going in for my first chemo treatment, and I was shitting it, to be honest with you. And I remember the man, Grant, my nurse, he turned around and he goes, "You've got a positive mind," and he said, "Just 90% of the battle." And I tell you what, he weren't wrong. You know, and I was able to come out there and do the things I've done. So we are on a podcast with Palmer's. So I've got some little gifts to give you.
You said Palmer's and I could smell it already.
There you are, my darling.
Thank you very much.
You.
Thank you.
And
I love a goodie bag.
Is for you. You can have a rummage through and see what's in there.
Lovely.
But thank you so much, girls. Thank you for coming on the show, and just thank you guys for watching once again. And we will be back next week with another episode.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.